They say the Great Smoky Mountains hold secrets older than time itself. Some whisper that the dense forests are haunted by ancient spirits, others believe something far worse lurks in the shadows. But for one group of friends, these weren't just stories. Their weekend getaway turned into a nightmare when one of them vanished into thin air, never to be seen again. It was the summer of 2018 when a group of 5 friends, Mark, Sarah, Daniel, Emily, and Eric, set off on a weekend hiking trip to the Great Smoky Mountains. They were experienced campers, familiar with the wilderness, and had planned a simple overnight stay near one of the many trails that wound through the dense forests. The first day was perfect. They hiked for hours, set up camp near a small clearing, and spent the evening laughing, roasting marshmallows, and telling scary stories around the fire. But as night fell, the thick fog rolled in, and an eerie silence settled over the forest. Even the usual sounds of crickets and rustling leaves seemed to disappear. Sometime around midnight, Eric stood up and announced he was stepping away for a moment to relieve himself. No one thought much of it at first. After all, they were deep in the woods, and privacy was limited. They heard him crunching through the underbrush, moving just a little beyond the tree line. A minute passed. Then 2. "Eric?" Mark called out. No response. They waited a few more moments, thinking maybe he was just taking his time. But when 5 minutes passed and there was still no sign of him, unease began to creep in. Daniel grabbed a flashlight and walked toward the trees where Eric had disappeared. "Eric! Quit messing around, man," he shouted. Silence. That's when the fear set in. The others grabbed their lights and began searching, fanning out through the woods, calling Eric's name over and over. But there was nothing, no footprints, no broken branches, no signs that anyone had even been there. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. They searched for hours, their voices growing hoarse as panic set in. Emily swore she heard whispering in the trees, soft, almost melodic, like someone calling a name just beyond her understanding. But every time she turned to look, there was nothing but darkness. Exhausted and terrified, they finally decided to wait until morning, hoping that Eric would somehow make his way back to camp. But he never did. At dawn, the group ventured deeper into the woods, desperate to find any sign of their missing friend. That's when they stumbled upon something chilling. Eric's flashlight. It was lying in the middle of the trail nearly a mile from their campsite, still turned on, the beam weak but unwavering. The battery should have died by then, but somehow, it kept shining. There were no footprints around it, no sign of struggle, nothing that explained how it had gotten there. It was as if someone, or something, had placed it there deliberately. Panicked, the group ran back to their car and drove to the nearest ranger station to report Eric's disappearance. A search and rescue operation was launched immediately, with dogs, helicopters, and dozens of volunteers scouring the area for weeks. But Eric was never found. No footprints. No clothing. No remains. It was as if he had never existed at all. The case baffled authorities, but locals weren't surprised. They spoke in hushed voices about the spirits of the Smoky Mountains, entities that lure hikers away, drawing them deeper into the woods with whispers and illusions. Some believe these spirits are the remnants of lost souls who perished in the mountains long ago. Others think something far darker lurks in those woods, something ancient, waiting, hungry. There have been countless disappearances in the Smokies, many just like Eric's. No evidence. No bodies. Just hikers who step away for a moment and never return. So, the next time you find yourself hiking through the Smoky Mountains, listen closely to the whispers in the trees. And whatever you do, never step away from the trail alone. Because some who vanish are never meant to be found. Imagine being alone in the vast wilderness, surrounded by towering trees and the deafening silence of the Appalachian Mountains. You settle into your tent, exhausted from a long day's hike. But just as you're about to drift off to sleep, snap. A twig breaks. Then another. And then, a whisper. Low, unintelligible, just outside your tent. You hold your breath, heart hammering in your chest. You know you're alone out here, or at least, you thought you were. This is the true story of a hiker who came face to face with something unexplainable on the Appalachian Trail, a shadowy figure that countless others have seen before him. Jacob, an experienced solo hiker, had always dreamed of hiking the Appalachian Trail. It was supposed to be a test of endurance, solitude, and self-discovery. But what he found instead was something he could never explain. He set out on his journey in late September, when the trail was quieter, the air crisp, and the leaves beginning to turn shades of red and gold. The first few days were everything he had hoped for: peaceful hikes, breathtaking views, and the satisfying ache of a long trek well done. But on the third night, things took a strange turn. Jacob set up camp deep in the forest, miles away from any town or known shelter. As he sat by the fire, eating a simple meal, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The woods, which had been alive with the sounds of crickets and rustling leaves just hours before, had fallen eerily silent. It was the kind of silence that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Then he heard it, soft, deliberate footsteps crunching against the fallen leaves. Slow. Measured. Coming from just beyond the reach of his fire's light. Jacob froze, listening. "Hello?" he called out, hoping it was another hiker. No answer. He grabbed his flashlight and shined it into the darkness. Nothing. Brushing it off as paranoia, he retreated into his tent and zipped it shut. But sleep wouldn't come easy that night. Just as he was dozing off, snap. A twig breaking, closer this time. Then, the whispering. Low and breathy, just outside his tent. It was impossible to make out the words, but he knew, without a doubt, that someone, or something, was right there. His heart pounded in his chest. He yanked open the tent zipper and shined his flashlight into the night. Nothing. No footprints, no movement. Just trees and darkness. The next day, he tried to push the eerie encounter from his mind, convincing himself it was just the wind or a small animal. But as the sun began to set, the unease returned. That night, he decided to keep his fire burning longer. As he sat staring into the flames, something caught his eye, just at the edge of the fire's glow. A shadow. Tall. Unmoving. Just standing there. Jacob's breath caught in his throat. The figure had no distinguishable features, just a dark mass standing between the trees. But the most terrifying part? The eyes. Hollow. Empty. Like two voids sucking in the light around them. Jacob tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a trick of the firelight, a strange shadow cast by the trees. But then, it moved. Not a step, not a lunge, just a subtle shift, as if it were swaying, watching. Pure terror gripped him. He didn't care about his gear. He didn't care about the rules of the trail. He grabbed his backpack, doused the fire, and ran. Jacob hiked through the night, pushing himself to exhaustion. Every so often, he glanced over his shoulder, feeling as if the shadow was right behind him, just out of sight. By dawn, he stumbled into a ranger station, out of breath and shaking. A ranger, an older man with years of experience on the trail, took one look at Jacob and frowned. "You saw him, didn't you?" the ranger asked. Jacob's stomach dropped. "Saw who?" The ranger sighed, leaning back in his chair. "People come in here every few months saying the same thing. A shadow figure, hollow eyes, watching from the trees. Some think it's a ghost, others say it's something older. Something that belongs to the mountains. But whatever it is, you're lucky you got away." Jacob never went back to the Appalachian Trail after that. He doesn't hike alone anymore. And sometimes, when he closes his eyes at night, he still sees those hollow, empty eyes staring back at him. So if you ever find yourself deep in the Appalachian woods and you get that feeling, you know the one, that someone's watching you. Don't look too long into the darkness. Because something might be looking back. The vast wilderness of Yosemite National Park holds more than just breathtaking views and towering sequoias. Some say the dense forests and rugged trails are home to something else, something that never left. This is the story of two hikers who came face to face with a presence lost in time, a woman doomed to wander the trails forever. Jake and Daniel were experienced hikers. They had explored national parks all over the country, but something about Yosemite felt different. The air was thick with an eerie silence, and at times, it felt as if the trees themselves were watching them. It was their second night on the trail when they saw her. "Jake, hey, do you see that?" Daniel, "Yeah, but why is she barefoot?" Standing just ahead on the trail was a woman, her long dress tattered, her feet bare and dirty. She seemed lost, her wide eyes filled with desperation. As the two approached cautiously, she spoke. "Woman, can you help me? I need to find my way home. There's a cabin nearby, have you seen it?" Jake pulled out the map, glancing at Daniel before pointing to a spot where a few old ranger cabins were marked. But when they looked up, she was gone. No sound. No movement. Just empty air where she had stood moments before. "Daniel, where the hell did she go?" There was no trace of her. No footprints, no rustling leaves, nothing. Uneasy but exhausted, they continued to their campsite, trying to shake off the strange encounter. But as night fell and the fire dimmed, the real horror began. "Jake, do you hear that? Someone's crying." The sobbing grew louder, closer, until it was right outside their tent. Holding their breath, they peeked out. And there she was. The woman. Standing deathly still in the darkness, her face barely illuminated by the dying embers of their fire. Her mouth was open, but the sound coming from her was not human, it was distorted, unnatural, as if it echoed from another time. "Daniel, we need to get the hell out of here." They didn't sleep the rest of the night, sitting with their knives drawn, every rustling leaf sending shivers down their spines. At the break of dawn, they packed up and hiked straight to the ranger station, desperate for an explanation. And what they heard chilled them to their core. "Park ranger, you're not the first ones to see her. A woman went missing here in the 1800s. She was searching for her husband, who never came home from a hunting trip. People say she never left, that she still wanders, looking for the cabin where she last saw him." Jake and Daniel never returned to Yosemite after that trip. But they left with something they would never forget, an encounter with something lost in time. So, if you ever find yourself hiking through those dense trails, and you hear soft footsteps behind you, or a whisper in the wind, be careful. Because some ghosts never stop searching for their way home. Sound, fading echo of a woman's whisper, "Help me." Sweet dreams, if you can sleep tonight.